There's a username on Peppa Pig's family computer that doesn't belong to anyone in the family. It's been sitting there for nearly 20 years. Nobody has ever explained it. And it might prove Peppa has a brother the show erased. You'll see the scoreboard the writers forgot to delete. The pregnancy timeline that proves a child existed between Peppa and George. And the toy in George's arms that isn't his to begin with. The username is OP. And once you know who OP is, the entire show changes. The scoreboard anomaly. The most concrete evidence appears in Mummy Pig's book. Peppa and George play a computer game featuring chickens. Standard children's programming content until viewers paused and examined the scoreboard displayed on screen. The leaderboard shows multiple player names. Daddy Pig's username appears, Mummy Pig's username appears, Peppa's username appears, George's username appears. Standard family roster. Except one additional entry sits at the bottom. OP. No character in the show's established canon uses these initials. No explanation provided, no reference made. Just two letters on a family computer's high score list like archaeological evidence from a deleted timeline. Fan theory immediately coalesced. Oscar Pig. A middle child born between Peppa and George who was subsequently removed from continuity. The username remains because nobody remembered to delete it from background artwork. A digital ghost haunting the family computer. Look at how the scoreboard is structured. It's not random placeholder text. Each entry corresponds to an actual family member who plays computer games in that household. Daddy Pig appears because he uses the computer.
Daddy, can we play that computer game, Happy Mrs. Chicken?
Mummy Pig appears because she uses it for work. Peppa and George appear because they're shown playing games multiple times throughout the series. Every name has a reason to be there. Except OP. Some say OP could mean anything. A glitch. A leftover from coding. But look at the specificity. This isn't generic filler. It's a family computer displaying usernames that match every existing character. Plus one that matches no one. The score next to OP suggests active gameplay. Not a placeholder. Not a default entry. Someone achieved that score. Someone sat at this computer, played this chicken game, and recorded that result under the initials OP. The game remembers them even if the show pretends they never existed. Why include it unless someone actually played this game? Someone with initials OP. Someone who existed before the show began concealing their presence. Hidden in plain sight on the family computer for nearly 20 years.
Well done, George! That's the highest score ever!
What do you think? Is it a forgotten coincidence? Or is OP a digital ghost the writers couldn't erase? A username alone doesn't prove a brother exists, but the timeline does. The pregnancy paradox. The episode Baby Bumps contains footage showing Peppa as an infant, while Mummy Pig displays visible pregnancy. Standard home video, except the timeline doesn't work with established ages. George is Peppa's younger brother. If Mummy Pig appears pregnant in footage showing baby Peppa, that pregnancy should produce George. Except George's age relative to Peppa's doesn't support that interpretation. The show consistently portrays George as significantly younger, approximately 2 to 3 years behind developmentally. Peppa speaks in full sentences. George communicates primarily through Dinosaur and crying. Peppa attends playgroup independently. George requires constant supervision. Peppa rides a bicycle. George hasn't mastered basic coordination. The developmental gap suggests years between their births, not months. If the footage shows Mummy Pig expecting, while Peppa remains an infant barely able to sit upright, that pregnancy occurring at that specific moment in Peppa's development should produce a child roughly 18 to 24 months younger than Peppa. But George appears 3 to 4 years younger based on consistent behavioural patterns throughout the series. The math doesn't work. Unless there were 2 pregnancies. one captured in the home video during Peppa's infancy, producing Oscar, and a second pregnancy occurring years later, producing George. That would position Oscar as the middle child, born after Peppa, born before George. Old enough to have played computer games and recorded his initials on the family scoreboard before whatever happened to remove him from the family narrative. If the footage shows Mummy Pig expecting while Peppa remains an infant, that suggests a child born between them, a middle sibling, someone who would now be older than George but younger than Peppa, precisely where Oscar Pig would position chronologically. Alternative explanations exist. Maybe animators made continuity errors. Perhaps home video chronology doesn't align with actual timelines. But combined with the scoreboard evidence, the pregnancy footage creates questions the show never addresses. Why show Mummy Pig pregnant during Peppa's infancy if no child resulted from that pregnancy? Hidden in plain sight, in home video footage nobody bothered to question. Unless it wasn't meant to create confusion, it documented something that happened before the narrative began concealing it. The footage is evidence. The pregnancy occurred. A child should exist from that pregnancy. And if that child isn't George based on age gaps, then who was born from the pregnancy the home video captured? The math proves Oscar existed, but proof of his existence isn't enough. We need proof he left something behind. Mr. Dinosaur's significance. George's attachment to Mr. Dinosaur transcends normal toy bonding. He panics during separation. He refuses replacement dinosaurs despite receiving newer versions. He treats this specific toy as irreplaceable. Watch how George reacts when Mr. Dinosaur goes missing in the episode Mr. Dinosaur is Lost. He doesn't just cry, he shuts down completely, refuses to eat, refuses to play, refuses to engage with family members trying to comfort him. His entire world collapses around the absence of this one specific toy. Mummy Pig offers him other dinosaurs. George rejects them. Daddy Pig suggests playing with different toys. George refuses. The family searches the entire house with genuine urgency. Not the casual, let's find your toy energy, but something approaching panic. Like they understand this loss means more than a missing plaything. And look at Mr. Dinosaur itself. Compared to George's other toys, bright, new, modern designs, Mr. Dinosaur appears faded, worn, the colors less vibrant, the fabric slightly deteriorated. It looks older than George's other possessions, like it predates his ownership. If Mr. Dinosaur originally belonged to Oscar Pig, George's attachment makes sense. It's not merely a toy, it's the only remaining physical evidence of the brother he never met. Unconsciously, George understands this object carries weight beyond material form. He can't articulate why this dinosaur matters more than identical replacements. He just knows, on some instinctive level children possess, that losing Mr. Dinosaur means losing something irreplaceable. Mummy and Daddy Pig's reactions to Mr. Dinosaur's loss support this interpretation. They don't treat it as recoverable toy requiring reasonable searching. They respond with urgency, suggesting they understand its significance extends beyond standard childhood attachment. They know what George doesn't. That Mr. Dinosaur connects him to Oscar. That this toy is the last physical thread linking the family to a child who vanished from their narrative. The toy becomes memorial and warning. Memorial to what was lost. Warning that loss can occur. Physical reminder this family has secrets even the youngest feel without understanding. George carries Oscar's toy everywhere, sleeps with it, refuses separation. Not because he's unusually attached for a toddler, but because he's holding the only proof his brother existed. The only object Oscar touched, played with, loved before disappearing from family history. And George, who never knew Oscar, guards that evidence like his life depends on it. The toy is the strongest physical evidence. But there's emotional evidence too, and it's hiding in George himself. George's displacement. For 20 years, George maintained clear identity. The baby, the youngest, the protected one. His entire characterization derived from that position: helpless, dependent, constantly seeking comfort. Evie's arrival obliterates that identity overnight. George transitions from youngest to middle child, from baby to big brother. Fundamental displacement with zero preparation. Observe George's recent behavior patterns. Increased clinginess to Mr. Dinosaur, carrying it even more obsessively than before Evie arrived. Heightened emotional reactions to minor frustrations. Visible jealousy when attention shifts to Evie during family interactions. Classic middle child syndrome, but George never learned coping mechanisms because he spent his entire existence as the youngest, never expecting to be displaced. Middle children develop specific survival strategies. They learn to navigate being neither the responsible eldest nor the coddled youngest. They find their niche. But George had no warning, no preparation period. One day, he's the baby everyone protects. The next day, he's expected to be the big brother while a newer, younger, cuter baby steals every bit of attention he spent 20 years monopolizing. If Oscar Pig theory proves accurate, George's displacement carries additional weight beyond typical sibling rivalry. He's not merely losing youngest status, he's filling the void left by a previous middle child who disappeared. He's becoming the replacement for something the family doesn't discuss. He's stepping into Oscar's position without knowing Oscar ever occupied it. This explains Mummy and Daddy Pig's treatment of George throughout the series. They indulge his tantrums beyond reasonable parenting. They accommodate demands other families would dismiss. They panic over minor distress, a small bump, a tiny scrape. The slightest discomfort sends them into protective overdrive. Watch how they react when George cries versus how they react when Peppa complains. Peppa gets reasonable responses. George gets immediate crisis intervention. The disparity suggests something beyond normal youngest child favoritism. It suggests fear, overcompensation from parents who previously lost a child and refused to risk losing another. They won't let George slip away like Oscar did. They protect him excessively because they failed to protect Oscar adequately. Every tantrum they indulge is apology for the child they couldn't save. Every demand they meet is insurance against repeating whatever caused Oscar's disappearance. George becomes the anchor preventing repetition of whatever happened to Oscar Pig. The living child they refuse to lose. The replacement son bearing the weight of a brother he never knew existed. George replaces Oscar, but the show needs a distraction, so nobody asks why. Evie's calculated arrival. Unlike any previous Pig family member, Evie's introduction received theatrical treatment unprecedented in the show's 20-year history. Advance announcements building anticipation. Media coverage across parenting websites and entertainment news. Special episode dedicated entirely to her arrival. Merchandise coordination ensuring Evie dolls hit shelves simultaneously with her first appearance. Intro sequence modification, the first change to Peppa's opening narration in 2 decades. Peppa's arrival predated the show's existence. Viewers never saw her birth or introduction, she simply existed as the established protagonist when the series began. George appeared without fanfare in early episodes, already present as Peppa's younger brother, requiring no explanation or celebration. Oscar, if he existed, was erased entirely. No introduction, no goodbye, no acknowledgement whatsoever. Just a username on a computer scoreboard and a pregnancy captured in home video footage that doesn't align with George's age. But Evie? Evie gets royal announcement, celebrity treatment, red carpet arrival into the Pig family household. The show practically screams, "Look at this new baby," with intensity that feels excessive for a series that previously introduced family members with zero ceremony. This disparity suggests strategic misdirection. Draw maximum attention to the official new arrival while maintaining absolute silence about unofficial members. Create spectacular spectacle around the acknowledged child, deflecting scrutiny from unacknowledged ones. Think about what Evie's dramatic arrival accomplishes. It establishes that the Pig family can announce new children. They can celebrate additions to the household openly. they can modify the intro sequence to include new siblings. Which raises obvious question. If they can do all this for Evie, why didn't they do it for George? Why is there no record of Peppa becoming a big sister the first time? Unless George wasn't the first time. Unless Peppa became a big sister to Oscar first, before something happened requiring Oscar's removal from the narrative. And when George arrived later, the family stayed quiet, hoping viewers wouldn't notice they'd already been through this process before. Evie becomes the distraction, the acceptable baby, the one viewers are allowed to know about, celebrate, and welcome into the family without asking uncomfortable questions about who came before. Her theatrical arrival serves dual purpose, introducing the new character while simultaneously establishing that new characters deserve introduction, making Oscar's absence even more conspicuous by comparison. The message is clear. This is how the Pig family introduces children they want you to know about, which means every child they didn't introduce this way was deliberately concealed. Of course, none of this can be definitively proven. But this is what hidden in plain sight means. Evidence everyone sees, every day, without seeing what it really is. A Scoreboard username matching no visible character. Pregnancy timeline requiring an additional child between Peppa's infancy and George's birth. George's protective overindulgence suggesting parental overcompensation for previous loss. Mr. Dinosaur's irreplaceable status, a faded, worn toy that predates George's ownership, treated as sacred object rather than replaceable plaything. Evie's theatrical introduction designed to distract from questions about who came before, establishing that the family can announce children when they want viewers to know about them. Individually, each piece of evidence permits alternative explanation. Animation error, continuity oversight, coincidental design choice. But collectively, they form pattern impossible to ignore. Oscar Pig existed. He was born between Peppa and George during the pregnancy captured in home video footage. He lived long enough to play computer games and record his initials on the family scoreboard. He owned a toy dinosaur George now carries everywhere. Something happened. The show erased him from continuity. But they forgot to delete the username. Forgot to edit the pregnancy footage. Forgot that George would inherit his toy and carry it like a memorial he doesn't understand. The evidence is there. The computer remembers when the show pretends to forget. The timeline proves what the narrative denies. And George clutches the physical proof in his arms every single episode, holding his brother's toy without knowing whose toy it really is. The show never addresses these discrepancies, never explains, never acknowledges, just continues broadcasting while evidence sits waiting for viewers to notice what's been there for 20 years. Drop your theory in the comments. Is Oscar Pig real? What happened to the middle child? Did he disappear, or was he written out before the show began? And if George inherited Mr. Dinosaur from a brother he never met, what does that toy really mean? Next time, we're examining Mr. Dinosaur itself, because that worn, faded toy George refuses to give up might be the only physical evidence Oscar Pig ever existed. We'll look at why George panics when it's missing, why Mummy and Daddy Pig react with such urgency, and what this toy reveals about the brother George replaced. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The Pig family has secrets. The computer remembers what the show erased. The timeline proves what the narrative denies. And George is holding the evidence in his arms, protecting his brother's memory without knowing his brother ever existed. The username is OP, and once you see it, you can't unsee what it means.